finally got round to shooting that particular scene, there on the laid out was my costume. This little sort of pie frill, and a pair of shoes, and a pair of knickers I may add. Anyway, I got into this, put a towel around my shoulders, and went into the makeup man, who did my face, and eventually I stood up, and he took the towel off me, and I stood very still and pretended it was fine. It was okay by me. And he took a big sponge, wet it, and he wiped it all around this big pancake thing. And he rolled his sleeves back. And he started to body paint me, as it were. And when he got to my boobs, he took his little finger and he very carefully lifted it up and it underneath, all the way around. I thought, this man has class. Anyway, I went downstairs and we did film. What I'd forgotten, of course, is that having learnt the routine, which was pretty agonizing learning it, I'd forgotten that they had to do retake after retake after retake. And by the time we got to lunchtime, I could barely walk. Went upstairs, put my feet up on a table. My little dresser came running up and she was just about to take the shoes off. I said, "Don't touch them, you'll never get them on again." Well, we went through the afternoon. By the evening, the blood was seeping through. I still have the shoes at home to prove it. I have little blood-stained pink shoes, but I did it. I did it. I think you can get it on video, and this has been burnt by now. I loved it, and I didn't think it was too bad. The other film I did, I was doing two films at the same time, which is odd for someone who doesn't do films, but there you are. I was filming a film called SWALK, which a lot of people still comes up quite a lot. It's a cult film, and I was playing Margulis's mother. And at one point we had a dinner scene, and we had to eat lasagna. Well, the whole point was the kids were watching, and the lasagna had to look disgusting. Adults eating lasagna and talking. So we filmed this for 2 days, and the lasagna, they were providing buckets in the corners. People, you were allowed to chew and spit out, because it was just, this sounds disgusting, but you've got to do that. And it was just the smell of it in the mornings. It was just, I can't tell you what it was like. He was shooting it from close, from above, the mouths, every angle he could think of, chewing and eating in forks. The next day, I had been given 1 day off to go and play a rabbi's wife in the film Percy with Hal Bennett, which was about a penis transplant. I don't know if you remember, so that's the rabbi joke. Go on. And it was a short scene. It was a sort of the rabbi giving tea to Hal Bennett as he was trying to find who the donor was. And I had to pour tea and offer him a biscuit, which he was supposed to take. Now he said, "I'm sorry, I'm on a diet. I'm trying to lose weight. I will not eat a biscuit." Well, they said, "We'll make one up for you out of what?" "Well, I can have boiled eggs, they're okay. But I'm not, only 2 takes at the most." Well, they made up this biscuit thing, egg, and we started shooting first day. Now, we'd been filming in a school, it was SWALK, and it was all over the place. It was jolly, and suddenly I was in a huge studio, and it was bells and lights and shut the doors and quiet, action, and I froze. I was looking at him and the biscuit, and I thought, I've been stuffing lasagna down me for days. I couldn't believe it. I just sat there. He said, "Action!" The lines went. Couldn't think of a single line. Cut. Well, this happened 6-7 times, by which time the teapot was going, the cup was rattling, I was getting 1 or 2 words out, and I was terribly sorry. And eventually they "We'll take you for a walk." This director was walking me around like a psychiatrist. It was just dreadful. It was awful. So actors' nightmare. It is, actors have nightmares about going and drying, not knowing where you are, what you're saying. Just, it's hell on earth. We finally got the scene together. I was so busy remembering the lines that it's been on television quite a couple of times. I look at myself being no acting actor. Just so delighted to get everything, and they had to glue the cup down on the sauce. That was my other wonderful film thing. Frost Report. I was in the Frost Report. John Cleese, two Ronnies, and me. I was the girly bit. I got it because at the time I was out of work, and somebody said, I think I was waitressing or something, as one does, and somebody said they were looking for somebody to drown in petrol underneath the titles of A Square World, Michael Bentine. Just sit in the sidecar of a motorcycle, and dishy blonde, big busty blonde, serves the petrol. Man chats up, girl is chatted up and forgets to turn the petrol off. Sidecar fills up with petrol, I drown. Well, I did that and got the Frost Report from that, because Jimmy Gilbert, who directed the Frost Report, saw that, and they were looking for a new comedy girl, and that's when Rubberface came in. I was terribly proud of myself when we were doing it. Used to do it live, and I was taken out to dinner after the live show one evening by my agent and his boyfriend, gay agent, boyfriend. Went to a restaurant, and they left me. We ordered drinks, and at the time I had all my full slap on. I had false eyelashes, had very short hair, rather like I have at the moment, and I had a shoestring dress, little black number, very, very elegant, I thought I looked. And we'd ordered our drinks. I used to drink whiskey at the time in tumblers, and I used to smoke those long brown cigarettes, not cigars, cigarettes. And they left me at the table, the drinks came, and I was sitting there feeling like a star, drinking whiskey, smoking the cigarette. And there's a table full of people over in the corner. I knew they'd recognise me, I knew, and I was trying not to show. And they were sort of looking at me and hissing amongst themselves, and they were frightfully like that. I could hear that they were sort of like that. And suddenly, I was preening a bit and trying to look sort of, I didn't care. And suddenly this voice rang out across the room, and this woman said, "Well, I think it's a man." Robert Morley did a play in the West End called How the Other Half Loves, with Robert Morley. And we had a scene together near the beginning of the play, and the telephone was operative. It was a double set, and there was a telephone on either set, and it was imperative that the phones worked because the whole plot was around these phone calls. Well, I went in, and I just left my husband, that was the theory. Had a baby in a pram, left ostensibly outside, and I had a bag full of whatever there was, toys showing or whatever, and I'd go in and we'd have to start the scene. And suddenly he said to me, "What have you got in the bag?" Because he did that. He got bored and he ad-libbed. I looked at him as if he was mad. I said, "Toys?" He said, for you, for Benji?" "Yes." "Show me." I said, "What, you want me to unpack the bag?" "Yes, want to see the toys." I sat down and he was saying, "Oh, that's a stupid thing for a child, that could hurt him." And what's that at the back with newspaper? Because the props people had packed the bag with newspaper. I mean, it was ridiculous. And he was fiddling with the phone at the time. And the bottom came off. The speaky bit of those old-fashioned phones, he had unscrewed it, and the speaker bit fell out. Now, Robert, bless him, had fingers like bananas, and he couldn't put it together again, he couldn't negotiate the thread, as they say. And I said, I was packing toys, but can I help you? I said, "No," he said, "I'll do this." And the time was getting on, the audience was getting restless. It was absolutely ridiculous. Then eventually I took it from him and screwed it up, sat down there. There I was with my bag full of toys, finally, and he was sitting there with the telephone together. And we sat and looked at each other, and he said, "Well, I don't know where we are." And he shouted out to the poor girl sitting in the corner with the script, "Where are we? Where do we start now?" And she gave him a line. "Oh, yes," he said, "right." And we were off. There was another occasion when he was given a new dressing gown, because he'd been in the play, it had run for a couple of years, I think, and he given a new dressing gown, and he walked in, first scene, and he walked straight to the audience and said, "New dressing gown, what do you think? Like it?" And then started the play. Anyway, all comedy people should do one-person shows. That's the theory. And so I did. And I booked myself to Edinburgh Festival, and it did quite well. And it did very well, actually. Went to Istanbul with it for a one-night stand. It's quite grand. I stayed at the consulate with the consular and his wife. It was wonderful, and taken around in a big car with a flag waving in the front. And she said to me one day, well, it's the Pope's birthday, and they've got a mini Vatican, as they have in, I believe, in most capitals. Got a mini Vatican, and they're having the Pope's birthday party. And I said, I've got nothing to wear. I've got my cabaret stuff, which is a black, slightly glittery dress, jacket, but it's long and it glitters. And I like big rings, so I always have a big ring then. And she said, well, that's all right, you can wear that. I said, oh, it's jeans, no, you can't wear that. What do you wear? Well, she turned up in a little velvet skirt, ordinary, little white blouse, ordinary, and off we went in the car, me in my frock and ring, and her in her little black skirt and top. And they opened the door of the car, out we got, and I walk up to two men in long black frocks. The only difference was theirs weren't glittering. And they had those skull caps on and big rings and crosses, I thought. And they obviously didn't know what to make of me at all. I didn't know whether to curtsy or not. I mean, I just didn't know. And it was 6 o'clock-ish. So I kept thinking, oh God, this is just too awful. Let it get dark, let it get dark. I was the only one dressed up like a bishop or whatever it was. And it was, as people accumulated, I kind of hid amongst groups of them so that the bottom half of me wasn't going to show too much. It was awful. I was deeply embarrassed. There was a French restaurant opening in London, a big, big restaurant, and they wanted a French cabaret, and they asked a lot of people, different people, to do whatever they do, items, and I happened to do a French chanteuse in my show, who was drunk. So I thought that'd be a good one to do. Got to the venue at about 11, which is when cabaret people arrive, because you're not invited to the party. And there were a lot of celebrities there, and they were given this free dinner and drinks and things, and everybody was pretty well oiled by the time we got there, and they had bands and all sorts of noisy, huge place. Eventually they came up and said, "You're on." So I get up on this tiny, tiny little podium in front of the drums and the piano and everything. So there's about an inch left in the front. My pianist gets to the piano. Now nobody's taking a blind bit of notice now of anybody anywhere. They're all dancing and whatever they're doing. Music stops, and ladies and gentlemen, Sheila Steafel, nothing. I mean, they couldn't hear it. So I stand there with a microphone in my hand and I say, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yvette." Now, I'm off on my bit. And somebody close by says, "Don't look now. Sheila Steafel's drunk and she's got hold of the microphone." Thank you very much for being lovely.
Sheila Steafel talking in December 2001. Next week, Jack does